Okay, welcome. So today I want to offer some reflections about burnout and how that links into leadership. And some of the symptoms, some of the reasons why we feel burnout, and just a couple of solutions. I'll go into more depth on another video, but enjoy. So, in my 20s, I had a burnout. I worked in London. I was working in sales and essentially, just lost motivation. And eventually it got so bad, I couldn't even get out of bed. That was a few years later. So I went through a period of a few years of burnout. And I see in the work I do with my clients, a lot of my clients have come to me with burnout. They're struggling, really chronically stressed. And, the common denominator for my clients is they went to boarding school as well. And I find that this is a common overlap, this burnout. And today I want to talk a little bit about, why there is this chronic burnout with leadership and then some of the symptoms as well. We'll begin with the symptoms, and it comes from this book by Emma Seppala, PhD, Happiness Track. And she quotes this from the Mayo Clinic. She says, some of the symptoms are being cynical, critical at work, dragging yourself to work, and having a hard time motivating yourself once there, becoming irritable or impatient with colleagues or clients, lacking the energy needed to be productive, lacking satisfaction when you achieve something, and feeling disillusioned with your work. And she points out in this book, this is about 10 years old now, but she's just saying that so many of us are reaching burnout. And that's 10 years ago. Post-COVID, with what's going on in the world, I can see burnout is really spiraling. And I did some research online, and I connected in with AI. I've been learning about this and asked, well, what is the biggest problem with leaders at the moment? And it came out chronic burnout is the number one problem. So I think this is really important, is to notice that this is a case. And you might say, well, I'm not a leader. Well, I feel we're all leaders because we begin by leading ourselves. Do I get up in the morning? How am I? How am I in my family, my children, in my office? We all lead, and I've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast, interviewing people like Rod Boothroyd. Is the sovereign, is the leader within us. We all have that capability. It's whether we cultivate it or not. So those are some of the symptoms. I mean, why is it for leaders that this is the biggest problem? So one of them, the first one, is really unrelenting expectations. We have so much pressure as leaders on us to do a certain way. We've got the shareholders, we've got so many people looking to us for answers. And I would suggest that the unrelenting expectations actually begin with ourselves. And especially if you've been to boarding school, had some form of trauma, often, as Pete Walker shows in his book Complex PTSD, we have this really strong inner critic. Beats us up. So yes, we have the pressure outside of us, but also we have the pressure inside. It's like we cannot stop. Another one of the reasons this is for chronic burnout is because we fear losing control. And again, I feel that can link into childhood trauma, is that we learn we had to control. Nick Duffel says when you go to boarding school, in his book Wounded Leaders, is that you learn that you can't control anything outside of yourself. You've got to control yourself. So that is a big fear for us. That's why we burn out, is that we really struggle to delegate, to give work to someone else and trust. Another reason why this is a problem, chronic burnout at the moment, is to do with isolation. We feel very isolated at the top. We have very few people who can really understand what we're going through. And we've learned, especially if we've gone to the Radleys, the Eatons, the Harrows, the top, the Phillips Academy in America, we've learned that you don't share your emotions. There's that lack of emotional intelligence, and therefore we feel isolated. I think that's another reason that we're facing chronic burnout. Another one is work-life imbalance. We're just on the go. And again, Nick Duffel and his book, Wounded Leaders, page 269, I think it is, he just says one of the symptoms of boarding school syndrome is just workaholism. You just cannot stop. And where does that come from? That often comes from the timetabling that we had at schools. So from 7 years old, 8 years old, 11, it's 7 in the morning through till 9 at night. You just don't stop 7 days a week. And therefore, what I see, and this is the work of Kelly McGonigal in the Upside of Stress and her book, she says actually stress is not a bad thing in and of itself if we can reframe it. The problem is that we don't then rest. There's an equation they talk about in self-development is S plus R equals G. So stress plus rest equals growth. That's where we grow, is when we are resting after we've been stressed out. What I see with most people who I work with is they get stressed, they just don't rest. And that's the important part that we've got to bring in. What might that look like? That might look like oscillating on. You do 90 minutes on, you do half an hour off. Or 90 minutes on, 15 minutes, go for a walk. Don't sit on your phone and look at Facebook. Walk, exercise, do some burpees or sit-ups. Do something to, almost, we call it eustress. It's like you stressed your body through doing exercise. That actually diminishes your psychological and emotional stress by doing that. And the final reason why, chronic burnout is a problem for leaders at the moment is diminished mental and physical health. By having this constant stress on us, we start to not be as healthy mentally and physically. We get things like anxiety, depression, and again, these are many symptoms of boarders who come to me. It's anxiety. So those are some of the reasons why this is the biggest problem for leaders. To end with, what can we do if we're feeling this burnout? So, like I said, first thing is oscillate on, oscillate off. Also have a hard stop at the end of the day. Mine is about 6 o'clock. Sometimes it goes a bit later, it might be 6:37. But it's shut down complete. This comes from Cal Newport's work of his book Deep Work. He says we really go deeply into our work, but then we must stop. He calls it a shutdown complete. So it's not checking our emails late at night or as soon as you wake up in the morning checking your emails. I generally don't turn my phone on to look at emails possibly till midday. I'll get up and, I'm recording this 8 o'clock in the morning, I'll get up, meditate, do my practices, do some qigong, do some yoga, work out, kettlebell work, and then, then I'll start seeing clients and then I'll look at my emails. So it's like really taking care, fill yourself up. Another thing I would suggest is, talked about exercise. So important, Irving Kirsch, in research he did, showed that, if we're depressed, if we take antidepressants or exercise, they are equally effective. But if I think the relapse rate for antidepressants was 30% of people after 6 months relapsed into depression. It was only 8% of the exercise part. So the people who had exercised 6 months later, only 8% had relapsed into depression. So it's really important to see, I could look at another email, I could do another thing, but actually I need to get out, I need to rest, I need to, read, I need to spend time with friends, I need to go to a gig or a concert, have some fun, work hard and then rest hard. So yeah, just some ideas there. I really see that we can move from being burnt out into growth, it being a real opportunity for growth. But we've got to put the work in. We've got to play hard, work hard, and then rest. So thank you so much. And this Friday, I have a podcast going live with a psychologist talking about path of healing, and different modalities for healing, called Rosalind Snyder. So really fascinating interview. So thank you for listening, and have a wonderful week. Okay, take care.